Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called If You Get Caught, You'll Die. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! On this beautiful and hot day, our main girl, Celia, is working the fields and sweating heavily. She finishes her work and chooses to leave immediately because the heat is making her dizzy, despite the fact that she has lived in the countryside for 7 years. As a native of the constantly chilly northern town of Ventrak, Celia is finding the heat to be unbearable. When Celia, who had charming blue eyes and black hair, was 13 years old, she bravely ventured out into the heavy snow to find food, concerned that her grandma would starve to death. After Celia's parents passed away in an avalanche, her grandmother took care of her and raised her on her own. However, she later became unwell, so Celia had to learn to be resilient at an early age. That day, she can't find anything to eat until she comes across a dazzling mango-looking fruit, which she rushes to, snatches, and chooses to bring it home to her grandmother. She is such a sweetheart! But when her hunger pangs hit, she chose to nibble on it, a decision she later came to regret due to the terrible flavor. As she weighs the pros and cons of swallowing the valuable fruit to satisfy her hunger, she is startled by a sudden yell and swallows it by mistake. When Celia turned around, she beheld a man with the most stunning golden hair she had ever laid eyes on. Aside from the visual appeal, she finds this man absolutely bonkers because he is utterly nude in a freezing place. The guy trembles in anger when he finds the precious core in Celia's hand and notices that she has already taken a bite of it. He then grabs the little girl by the collar and explains how he merely removed his core, aka the shiny mango, for his transformation, and how as a result of what she has done, he now has no choice but to take Celia's heart. It takes 10 years for a human to fully absorb the core, so the man guarantees to torture her while he waits. Celia cries, and the gorgeous guy loses power as it is time for his transformation, so he takes the remaining core, swallows it all, and begins transforming into an absolutely majestic golden dragon. Celia appears to be fortunate because the dragon was unable to kill her right now, but he declares to rip her heart out in 10 years when she has totally absorbed his core. Celia snaps out of her trance and starts paying attention to her friend, Luana, who informs her that a remarkable visitor is on their way. Celia sweats as Luana reveals that the man is apparently looking for an item that was taken from him 10 years ago. Not to mention that the thief is a northerner hiding in their town. As soon as she heard the man's name, Kaix, she started to shudder and her soul left her body. Celia's heart raced as she heard the news about Kaix, believing that he had discovered her, and she quickly devises a plan to dye her hair and begs her friend to assist her, who grins and agrees to do so. The Northerners from Ventrak have black flowing hair, so she's thinking that if she changes the color, Kaix won't be able to identify her. But after her friend helps them finish dyeing her hair, she's shocked to see that her new hair color is green. She screams as she watches herself in the mirror, but she also feels relieved because it's a better disguise that will prevent Kaix from ever figuring out that she's from the north. She actually looks adorable in her new hair color. She goes to work that day unaffected by her employer's persistent complaints about her new hair color, since she believes what she did is fine as long as Kaix does not recognize her. The sound of trumpets and drums heralds Kaix's arrival, while she clings to the belief that he will never recognize her. But as she turns to face him, she can't help but be captivated by his aura and amazed by his stunning good looks. However, she can't help but remember the terrified look on his face when he promised to take her heart a decade ago. The trauma never left her mind. As she is about to throw flower petals at him, she pauses in fear as Kaix is giving her a death gaze and tells her that it's a good thing she didn't throw petals at him, because he might slice her arm off for it, then orders them to cease the lavish greeting. Some servants remark on how stunning Kaix is, but he has an attitude, which causes her to quaver and sweat so much that her knees weaken. She comforts herself, believing that it's over, but she freaks out when they are ordered to follow Kaix. In his relaxed, attractive manner, Kaix reveals that he is on the hunt for a human who has stolen from him and is certain that he will rip her apart once he finds her. But he is unsure that she is in their territory, so he smiles and tells them that he will enjoy the hunt, while Celia trembles in fear listening to their conversation and thinks that if she knew back then, she would not dare to steal something that belongs to him. The man in charge tells him to enjoy everything they have to offer while he's there and is confident that Kaix will capture the rat he's looking for. while Celia tries to relax because she believes he does not know her for the time being. But to be careful, she decides to be on guard during his stay. So as Kaix eats, Celia steals a quick glimpse in his direction. He's not directly staring at her, but he can still sense that she's staring, so he summons her and demands to know why. Celia tries to clarify that she is just being curious, but he says she looks more vigilant than curious, which makes her tremble with fear. When he approaches her and demands an explanation, Kaix smiles while she trembles, trying to come up with any excuse to save herself. When he puts his hand on her neck, she quickly racks her head in an attempt to come up with an explanation that will make him feel disgusted. As a result, she blurts out that she fell in love with him right away, claiming that it was love at first sight. Everyone in that room pauses while she's screaming inside for what she just did. The secondhand embarrassment I have for this girl is strong. Celia's emotions get the best of her as she looks into Kaix's cold eyes, so as a result, she starts babbling about what a great person she is, such as how she isn't a picky eater and is an incredible masseur. Contrarily, Kaix starts wondering if she's trying to persuade him she's marriage material, which is obviously not what Celia wants, but she ends up agreeing because she has already expressed her love for him. He chuckles at her and goes away, which eases her as she survived their first encounter in 10 years. Unfortunately, she has only made matters worse by attracting Kaix's attention, who plans to keep her as a servant while he is in Hanan territory. In order to fill you in on what happened during their initial meeting on the snowy mountain a decade ago, Kaix went there for his final metamorphosis. Dragons go through this procedure 6 times every 100 years, and after each phase, they reach their actual form. Much like a Pokemon evolution, Kaix is destined to become the greatest golden dragon since his predecessor fell in love with a goddess and ended up ascending to the sky with his lover, something Kaix thinks is extremely despicable. Forever isn't long enough for Kaix to love himself, so the idea of loving another person is really not in his vocabulary, and he thinks it's foolish. Just then, Roman, a black dragon, appears to ensure Kaix's proper metamorphosis, as he has made numerous mistakes during his previous 5th cycle. He established a human empire but forgot to rule it, and even nearly married a red dragon for giving her a flower. And Roman is always the one to clean up his mess. I see. So we have a dumb main lead. Interesting. Roman leaves after seeing that Kaix is all set up, promising to meet him in a decade. Kaix starts, but then realizes he forgot the necessary stone, so this dumb guy leaves his valuable core in the snow and hastily goes, which is how young Celia discovered it. The core gives dragons power, and they can only share it once with someone they truly love. But Kaix has no intention of sharing it with anybody, so witnessing a child bite on it enrages him. That's what you get for leaving something so important unattended. Back in the present, Celia is undressing Kaix because this guy wants her to bathe him. She can't believe she has to see him naked again, and she is split between liking it and being afraid that he will kill her on the spot. Kaix, on the other hand, believes Celia has fallen head over heels for him and figures she's excited, so he instructs her to focus or else he will have her replaced, which is actually a wonderful idea. So Celia smirks as she prepares to give him the worst bath ever. Their dynamic is refreshing. However, she almost forgot about her objective when she saw Kaix's gorgeous chiseled form and began drooling. I can't blame her though. Fortunately, she awakens from the trance and resolves to do a poor job, so that Kaix becomes irritated and swiftly replaces her. But Kaix has not appeared to dislike her because, even when she drops the scrub, he simply chuckles and assumes that she's so captivated by how attractive he is. Hearing this dragon go crazy over himself makes Celia's mouth stay open. After that, he asks her to wash his hair, which she does swiftly. However, she stops when she notices that he's staring at her and insists that she call him by his name, as this prompts her to recall the horrible experience she had with him in the past. She attempts to remain calm and begins washing his hair, but her heart can't help but skip a beat as she gazes at his sleeping face. The ups and downs of her feelings for him are actually hilarious. As a result, she makes the decision to get it done as quickly as possible and leave before anything more takes place. However, even after she has finished it, Kaix isn't waking up, so she chooses to continue washing and massaging his hair for a considerable amount of time until she finally decides to tap his face. He is surprised and hastily stands up, which causes Celia to be drenched by the water before groggily informing him that she is done with his hair. Afterwards, she observes Caix's expression of surprise, but she chooses not to give it any thought and instead proceeds to dry him off. I bet Kaix has trouble sleeping and her touch is helping him sleep well. He does nothing while Celia uses the towel to pat him dry. She may act as if nothing is wrong, but she's actually flushing profusely and attempting to rationalize her reaction by comparing him to a huge lizard. A very gorgeous one, that is. After that, she takes a quick look at his poker face, and given that he is typically obsessed with his appearance, she begins to wonder whether she has done something wrong to cause him to become silent. Now that he's completely dry, Kaix instructs Celia to massage his head, and she is startled to see him fall asleep after only a moment of her touch. She looks at him cutely and considers that having him sleep is far preferable to him staying awake. And after 2 hours, she wakes him up. And this innocent young girl has no idea that after this fateful day, her days will grow more tedious as Kaix really enjoyed her massages. Seeing the twinkling stars outside Kaix's window makes Celia want to go home, but she has to wait until her last task of the day, massaging him, is over before she can. His daily massage typically takes place between midnight and 1 a.m., so what does he do in the morning? Nothing. He does nothing. The sleep-deprived poker look of Celia belies a mad lady who wants to hit Kaix till he falls asleep. She even pretended to smile while massaging him once because she was exhausted from her everyday duties. But this guy assumed she was blushing at his beauty, lol. She was outraged and wanted to say something awful, but she kept her cool and pretended she admired him. Just the thing she has to do to stay alive. She stands in the corner, her mind wandering to Eric, pondering whether he washes up at her place again after witnessing him finish a bath there the night before. He cutely explains that his shower is still not fixed, but what attracts Celia's attention is why he washes so late, and she suspects he is working overtime like her. She is taken aback when Eric reluctantly admits that he's waiting for her to return home. Ooh, this guy may have feelings for our girl. He then holds her hand and is embarrassed as he questions whether Kaix is imposing himself on her, which is why she's been arriving home late. I know it takes a lot of guts for Eric to state that he's willing to help Celia if she's in a terrible situation, but our girl here really can't read the mood and just thanks him and clarifies that Kaix isn't harming her. After recalling it, she passes out and almost falls to her knees, but she quickly rises up, which Kaix notices, so he asks her for a massage even though it's not yet midnight. When our exhausted girl begins massaging him, she can't help but notice his remarkably muscular physique despite his remarkably pale complexion. What surprises her more than anything is that every time she touches him, she relaxes and becomes sleepy. She tries to snap out of it and focus, but even after a while, she's confused as to why this lizard guy hasn't fallen asleep and continues to stare at her. Kaix guides Celia's hands to his face with a serious expression, and our girl assumes he wants her to perform a facial massage, so she honestly admits she has no experience. However, it appears that this is not what this man wants, as he begins blushingly stating that he does not dislike her touch, and even orders her to continue touching him. His comments make Celia redden, but his expression betrays his feelings. He looks like he wants to murder her right this second, which makes her feel like she wants to scream and cry inside. She ends up touching his lips, most likely out of curiosity, and then immediately takes her hand away from him. This causes Kaix to become irritated, and as a result, he pulls her closer to him until they're in a hugging position. Celia's face is as red as a tomato, and she happens to enjoy Kaix's warmth as well. As a result, she does not object and allows him to fall asleep while they're hugging. Despite this, she is still of the opinion that Kaix is just as dangerous as he was before. That lengthy night of embrace did not happen again, but their massage sessions continue, leaving her as worn out as a zombie during the day. She passes out when working on the farm and even while eating, and she is convinced that if her current schedule continues, she will not only pass out, but pass away. That night, she is exhausted from massaging Kaix and relieved that the guy falls asleep quickly, so she chooses to leave, but is surprised when Kaix subconsciously grasps her hand so tightly. Because his touch is making Celia dizzy and she has no energy left for the day, she collapses onto his bedside and falls asleep. When she finally wakes up, she feels revitalized, until she realizes that she isn't in her room, and much worse, that she slept with Kaix the whole night. Celia slowly pulls herself away from Kaix's grip, but quickly lies down again to pretend she's still asleep when Roman enters the room with gifts from the elders. The presence of Roman awakens Kaix, who is now boiling with anger after he discovers Celia sleeping in his bed, and he screams in an attempt to wake her up. They're really cute cuddling, though. For a dragon to share its core means making a lifelong commitment to that individual, and their entire being, mind, soul, and body become unstable as a result. Consequently, the only way to cure a dragon is to either get its core back or engage in physical intimacy with its lover. And as for Kaix, who has no idea where that young lady who took a bite out of his core went, he has been in a very unstable state and suffers from insomnia. So Roman discovering him asleep with a servant is really surprising. Kaix pulls the sheets, forcing Celia to bounce off the bed, but with quick reflexes, she rolls over in a bowing position to apologize to him. As Celia readies herself to die, she is taken aback when Kaix simply scoffs and blushes at the idea that Celia is so fascinated with him that she climbed into his bed. He continues to discipline her while she admits to drooling after him, but Roman, the sole quick-witted person in the room, notices Celia's expression is not that of someone in love. Normally, Kaix would be raging right now, but he isn't, prompting Roman to believe that Celia must have some power over him. But he dismisses those ideas because his boss's relationship is none of his business. Roman came close to solving the plot, but really said this ain't part of my job description. Now we wait for our handsome dumb dragon to figure it all out. This black dragon then interrupts their moment to disclose something about Kaix's core, and Celia uses the chance to quickly zoom out of his room like a ninja. After that, Roman says that he did not alert the dragon elders about Kaix's core problem, but they did send him presents. So Roman urges Kaix to send them letters of gratitude. Roman then inquires about Kaix's relationship with Celia, but he merely responds that she is his masseuse, who is really skilled at her job, and as a reward, he intends to stay up for an hour longer so she can appreciate his beauty. No! Let our poor girl sleep! Kaix's quiet morning is disrupted when the butler expresses his excitement that Count Prashi has sent him a magnificent and rare horse. This irritates Kaix, but when the man offers to test ride it around the village, Kaix agrees because he had a good night's sleep and a stroll could brighten his day even more. However, instead of an enjoyable stroll, a wave of emotion rushes over his body as he spots Celia looking fatigued at the farm. Kaix couldn't comprehend his weird feelings because he imagined Celia was resting while she wasn't tending to him, but now he understands why she looked fatigued every day. Feeling guilty, are we? After she trips and spills the corn, Kaix rushes over to put his coat around her. He is now starting to care, and I adore how he instantly became a gentleman. The sight of Kaix standing before her shocks Celia, and her confusion grows when he criticizes her, with a pained expression on his face, saying that she should have clean hands considering that she's his personal servant. This is him actually showing his concern, but Celia misses the point and tries to explain that she meticulously cleans up before serving him. This only makes Kaix feel worse and informs her that it is not good enough, as if stating that he hates seeing her do so much laborious work. Before he leaves, he gives her strict orders to clean up, warns her against entering his chamber unless summoned, and emphasizes that she will not see him for some time now. Yes, let our girl rest! Celia then hides her face, leading him to believe that she is trying to cover up her tears and is heartbroken because she would be unable to see his lovely face. So as his final words, he encourages her to pray that he reconsiders his orders. But in actuality, our girl is ecstatic to be free and does her best to muffle her excitement. 4 days later, Kaix is simmering with rage and cannot concentrate on writing his letters to the elders because he expects Celia to come groveling at his feet. While Roman reminds him of his orders, he is too outraged to listen because he imagines Celia lurking nearby, trying to catch a sight of him and insisting that's how it should be, which further confuses Roman. Kaix's attitude shifted abruptly, and now he thinks she's merely scared of disappointing him if she disobeys his order. He also admits he was too strict, and he can't help but think about how devastating it must have been for Celia to miss out on his glorious presence. This dragon is really delulu. He worries that Celia must have felt like the world had come crashing down around her, but honestly, it's the complete opposite. Our girl is enjoying farm life. He then instructs Roman to bring Celia to him, while Roman resolves to rush and track down the Northerner who took a potion of the core, fearing that Kaix's behavior is changing as a result of his missing core. Meanwhile, Celia is having her dinner and is filthy from working in the field when a servant informs her that Kaix has summoned her and ordered her to wash up and change, because he's waiting for her in his chamber, which upsets her because she's still enjoying her freedom and there's nothing she can do. With all of her smiles, she greets Kaix, who believes that her time away from him must have been unbearable. Celia protests that she deserves to be punished longer, which means more freedom, but he is adamant that she must return to her duties that day. So he pulls her into his lap and demands that she report to him as soon as she wakes up. Freedom no more. Despite her confusion about Kaix's possessive behavior that day, Celia grants his request. He goes on to say that he enjoys going for walks outside and plans to do so on sunny days, and Celia agrees to report to him as he demands. She thinks on the brighter side that compared to other work she had to do in the past, taking a stroll with Kaix is easier, but the thought of walking with the insane dragon upsets her, and she sobs on her situation. Just then, Kaix's head glides into hers, and she flushes to realize he's asleep in that awkward position. For the past week, she has been reporting to Kaix every day, and she has discovered that her life has become much easier. She no longer has to toil away in the fields or appease an unreasonable boss. Instead, all she has to do is give Kaix a little massage and pretend that she loves him. The best part is that she gets to eat 3 meals a day, which she finds ironic given that her most comfortable place is right next to the most uncomfortable creature she's ever encountered. But as the saying goes, when wonderful things happen, something bad follows. And that is exactly what happened today as dirt flies straight at Kaix's head. Celia is still shocked while her friend Luana rushes over to apologize and bow down before him. But his reaction remains unchanged. His desire to kill Luana grows, leaving Celia no choice but to appease him. She tries telling him he looks good with or without dirt, but it doesn't work. Next, she suggests that he should clean up, but that doesn't work either. As Kaix continues to approach Luana, Celia panics and resorts to her third remedy, a desperate plea for mercy, grabbing him and pleading with him to reconsider. His promise to be a kind ruler causes him to pause, and she seizes the opportunity to offer him her house nearby where he can wash up. They find themselves outside her house, which he refers to as a barn, but she warmly welcomes him inside. Upon entering, he searches for the bathtub but finds that she doesn't have one. She then offers him a bucket and tells him that she also doesn't have hot water, which shocked him. This is, of course, the expected response from a wealthy dragon. There is nothing he can do, so instead of arguing more, he asks for her assistance in undressing. But she blushes as she sees him naked and experiences an unsettling sensation. When their gazes met, they both glanced away in surprise, and even though it wasn't her first time seeing him topless, her heart raced and she flushed even more. Such cuties. After Kaix has finished taking a shower, Celia offers him to use her bedroom while she washes and dries his clothes. She also chooses to wash up because she's rather dirty as well, and after doing so, she hangs their clothes outdoors to dry. Once Celia enters her room, she notices that Kaix is sitting there half naked, and he is very relaxed and calm. This is in contrast to what she imagines, which is that he'll get hysterical while sitting in a dirty room. But now that she's able to stare at his calm face, she can't help but blush. So she pushes those feelings away and chooses to simply massage him to sleep while they wait for their clothing to dry. She usually massages him while sitting in a chair, but today she needs to get a little closer to him to do her job, which makes her cry, since she realizes how poor she is that she doesn't even have a single chair. She then instinctively touches his ear, prompting Kaix to jerk up as she panics and thinks for an explanation. But he quickly pulls her to the bed, and they have switched positions. Even though Celia thinks he's a mad dragon who wants to rip her heart out, she finally admits her affections for him today and holds him close. Just the consent this sly dragon is waiting for, and they spend the night together. The following morning, Celia awakens from her sleep to find that she is not in her room. Oh, and did you notice that she's wearing Kaix's polo? I bet he even put it on her. Then she catches Kaix having tea with Roman alongside him, sighing and questioning him about what he intends to do with her, as if they didn't notice her awake in bed. Roman goes on to say that Kaix has been killing just because he felt like it, so it wouldn't surprise him if he plans to do the same to Celia. Which causes Kaix to become very serious and suggests to Roman that he repeat what he said. Roman apologizes abruptly for speaking so hastily, while Celia clings onto the blanket and regrets what happened to them, since she had no idea Caix's second nature was to kill. Kaix dismisses Roman, telling him to write the response letters to the elders himself. Before Roman can refuse, Caix's cold stare scares him and he obeys his command and exits the room. Now that Roman is out of the picture, Kaix approaches Celia, who is shaking with fear as she believes she'll be ripped to shreds. After that, Kaix listens to her racing heart by touching her, and he feels delighted that he influences her in such a way. If looks can speak, Celia's expression can only mean a bad word. She checks her own beating and acknowledges that Kaix has a very deadly effect on her. Literally, and is now convinced that her skipping heart for him is driven solely by fear. Although Celia avoided making eye contact with him, Kaix brushed her hair and thought it strange that he could develop feelings for a human, especially one with unusual green hair. They didn't talk about their night together, but he can't help but want her more, despite the fact that he considers himself a perfect being with no desire for anyone. Yes, then how about you connect the dots, Mr. Dragon? With a flushed face, he averts his gaze and tells Celia to rest in his room before he leaves. Kaix cuts her off the moment she attempts to speak, as in his mind, Celia is going to begin to cling to him like a lover and beg him to stay, but in reality, our girl is simply wishing to go home. They really are Dumb and Dumber. Celia finally speaks out and asks him for a favor. Give her something to help her cover up, which our guy gladly obliges. He grabs one of his jeans and helps her put it on, making Celia blush, but she ends up pouting when this narcissist tells her not to get any wrong ideas and then kisses her leg. They love each other and don't even realize it. Kaix smiles because he's having a nice day, and he wonders if it's because he is delighted by the sight of Celia attempting to walk a mile in his pants and feeding her like there's no tomorrow. Upon recalling Roman's request, he realizes he has nothing to do, so he decides to send a return letter to the elders thanking them for their gifts. This makes Roman glad and relieved, so he gets ready for the letters and papers Kaix would need. One handwritten letter caught Caix's attention, so he decided to open it. They are shocked to learn that it was a chain letter that instructed him to write and send the same letter to other people in hopes of receiving good fortune in return. However, he was warned that bad luck would befall him if he did not comply within 4 days. Can't believe I'd see a chain message scam in a historical story! Roman shudders, thinking that Kaix would lose his temper, so he assures him that he will track down the letter's author. But Kaix, ever composed, tells him to get everything ready so that he may write the letter. Roman is taken aback and grateful that he is unaffected by the annoying spam. Kaix is ready to begin writing when a maid inadvertently strikes the bottle of black ink, causing Roman to tremble with concern for the maid's life. But Caix's attention is drawn to Celia, who has woken up after a hearty meal. Look at that cutie green pea who has no idea that she'll be saving a servant's life! Roman and the maid are terrified for her life, but they're all taken aback when Kaix simply informs them that it's lunchtime and asks them to prepare. So the relieved maid rushes to comply, while Roman is troubled by Caix's behavior. Love does change people. And dragons. As soon as the lunch is prepared, Kaix dismisses everyone and doesn't punish them for the incident, which worries Roman even more. Kaix is focused on Celia, and seeing his joyful expression confirms to Roman that Kaix has developed not love, but a strange mental illness as a result of his missing core. That night, Celia goes back to her home and is horrified to see her house in ruins. The composed maid tries to reassure her not to be too shocked, but Celia can't get her head around the fact that not a single wood frame in her house remains intact. Celia goes on a tirade about how her home is ruined in an instant, and it hurts when the maid says it's not a home because it's too run down, dangerous, and looks like a place for livestock. This maid is really honest! Celia starts sobbing and tells the maid that although her home is cold, has a leaky roof, and is generally dark and damp, the kind of place even a ghost wouldn't want to stay, she is proud of it as she worked so hard to earn her sweet little home. She is getting really emotional, but that changes into anger when the maid mentions that it's actually Caix's orders. After that, the cool-headed maid advises her to collect herself and follow her. Celia quietly follows the maid, and as they walk, she notices the pleasant surroundings and continues to look around when the maid informs her that it will be her new home, which she misinterprets as referring to the open space where they're standing, but the maid points to a house not far away. The house is gorgeous, and she recalls that it was once the home of the top maid, But what surprises her even more is the fact that 10 maids clean the house just for her at Caix's order. It's as if the servant wants to see Celia experience a roller coaster of emotions in one night. When she's alone, she feels excited and still can't believe it's actually happening as she checks her new house. No more wood and bugs because it's made of bricks. Ceilings that don't leak, 2 rooms, and of course, hot water is accessible. Her heart flushes, thinking that Kaix has done everything for her. But she realizes that if he finds out the truth, he will rip her apart. However, she is still grateful to him, which makes her flush. When she arrives at work the next day, she is surprised to see everyone in a panic and discovers that Caix's room is on fire because his scented candle he used to help with insomnia tipped over. She rushes to his room because she is worried for him. But she's only worried for nothing because Kaix and Roman simply make fun of her green hair. Just then, the chain message letter lands over her shoulders, which doesn't make sense because she can't read it. So Roman snatches it away from her. Kaix already wants to eat breakfast, so they go ahead and tell Celia to join them, which she gladly does. Celia believes that when she's with him, good things happen. But as they are dining, tension arises when Caix's glass breaks while he's holding it, and orders to punish the manufacturer by cutting off their hands. Celia almost forgets Caix's true nature, so just hearing him casually giving punishment sends shivers down her spine, reminding her that he's a vicious dragon hunting to kill her, and she must escape his grasp. Kaix detects a shift in her behavior as she appears more jumpy than usual, and realizes it is because he punished the glassmaker. Celia is understandably terrified because she is well aware that she herself could be the target of his punishment next. Kaix then smiles and argues that she is partially responsible for his problems today, as he had difficulty sleeping without her, forcing him to use a scented candle. He declares that if she had been around, he would have had no reason to use a candle, which would prevent the fire and make him less likely to get angry and punish the glassmaker. Her jaw dropped as she mentally cursed this dragon for making her take the blame. He's really childish, but cute. To make amends, he approaches her and begins kissing her before Roman interrupts them. To Roman's defense, they're in his room since Caix's is still being renovated, but his sudden presence has Kaix upset. He shifts his attention back to Celia and asks for her approval to cut off Roman's hand, even if it's just a finger, because it will grow back. He is getting tamed for sure. Celia insists on no, and the poor black dragon on the side cries bitterly. Since that day, Kaix has had a lot of misfortune, such as eating a rotten apple, breaking his chair, and even being struck by potatoes. Seeing him in this condition is hilarious to Celia, and she's doing her best not to laugh, afraid that she'll be held responsible once again. As they continue their daily stroll, Kaix loses his footing and smashes his face into the muddy puddle, sending Celia reeling as she tries to hold back her laughter. In spite of all the bad luck he's been dealing with, this impatient dragon has managed to remain silent and composed. They then head to her new home, and Celia can't help but smile since he resembles a kid who went out to play in the mud. She then proudly shows him her bathroom, complete with a bathtub where he may shower, but instead, this dragon approaches her to see if she can cure his ill luck. As they lean in for a kiss, a shelf item falls on his head, ending his act of Mr. Good Dragon and igniting his annoyance. I guess ignoring the chainmail gets you this. He immediately goes back to the mansion and begins composing a response to the chainmail after embarrassing himself in front of Celia, which puzzles Roman and raises the possibility that he is developing affection for our sweet green pea. Kaix looks at Roman, disgusted, and tells him that it's actually the other way around, and he simply does not want to disappoint his biggest admirer. This dragon is still in denial. Anyway, he keeps writing, and since Roman is bugging him to send letters to the elders, he has the brilliant idea of passing the chain letter to them. The elders get all 7 letters, and Kaix's bad luck is finally over. That night, he calls Celia as usual, and since he's in a good mood, he poses for her so she may enjoy his beauty, unaware that our girl is not interested and is already dozing off. He smiles cutely and realizes he has never known her name, so he proudly permits her to tell it, but she simply yawns. Kaix's sudden seriousness jolts Celia awake, and she instantly tells him her name. Celia. Gosh, our guy only knew her name just now after everything they've been through? And because she appears exhausted, he offers her his bed so she may sit, which she eagerly takes. She then gets confused when Kaix approaches her unexpectedly, assuming he wants a massage, but instantly apologizes when her contact startles Kaix and she realizes this is not what he wants. However, this tame dragon takes her hand and begins gleaming as he rubs his face with it before stopping when he discovers a note in her pocket. Celia explains that she found it near her house, but has no idea because she can't read. So she hands it to Kaix, and as soon as he reads it, the mood shifts as it's that nasty chain letter again. He looks like he could kill someone right now, tells Roman to grab Celia a letter pad so she may compose 7 letters to the elders, and is itching to punish whoever started the letters. It is very hilarious that the chain letter plays a key role in the story. Those chainmail letters bring back good old memories, though. They spent days trying to figure out who sent the chain letter, but in the end, they confirmed that the 2 men kneeling before him were responsible. Roman tells Kaix that their detectives came to this conclusion after looking over the letters. When the man begs him to spare his family in his terror, Kaix turns a defiant smirk on his face and tells him that his request is meaningless, because he wants everyone in his family to perish. Celia's pulse races as she listens to him, convinced that he truly meant what he said while knowing how harsh and cold he can be. Seeing his enraged expression, she figures Kaix will kill, but she does not want that to happen, nor does she want to be with someone like that, and she believes that those 2 guys do not deserve to die. This causes her to relive her traumatic meeting with Kaix from a long time ago, and fear takes over her entire body to the point that she can't breathe or say anything. Kaix grabs her and calls her name, but no matter how hard she tries, no sound comes out, and she becomes concerned that Kaix and even Roman will notice something is wrong with her. She starts to worry too much, believing that the 2 dragons will discover her true identity and murder her. Kaix really caused her trauma. Kaix is becoming more concerned and tries to calm her by telling her to breathe slowly, while Celia begs him to spare the lives of the 2 men as she sobs from fear. He holds her, and knowing that killing as punishment means nothing to him, he doesn't see why Celia would be worried about the men, so he simply tells her to close her eyes and guarantees to protect her. Still, Celia breaks down in tears and expresses her fear of him, only to find it ironic that a simple hug from the guy she fears the most could offer her great comfort. She leans forward to feel his embrace, but she fears that his concern for her today will suddenly change when he learns the truth about her. She is convinced that when the time comes, Kaix will show his true nature and will not hesitate to sever her heart as she writhers in agony and then grasp onto the fragment of his core that he has lost. Opening her eyes, Celia gasps for air and finds herself on Kaix's bed, where she discovers that, despite her continued fear, Kaix is worried about her. She sits uneasily as he explains that, although he knows she gets startled easily, he didn't think she would pass out. Celia apologizes, but when Kaix reaches out to touch her, all she sees are his dragon claws, which cause her to shiver and move away in terror, while Kaix regretfully withholds his hand and asks if she's afraid of him. Even though Celia understands that remaining silent puts her in danger, she doesn't say anything. Suddenly, Kaix taps her hand, causing her to glance at his sorrowful expression as he apologizes and promises to consider the impact of his actions on her. His words are so unexpected that Celia can't help but cry. At the same time, stories circulate among the nobles about a chain letter that ended up reaching the head of the Apion Foundation, resulting in the sender being banished from the kingdom for a week without a penny as punishment. Everyone knows Kaix is the head of the Apion Foundation, and despite the incident, he chooses to stay in Hanan, which the nobility see as an opportunity to gain his trust and have him do some favors for them. So many royalties and nobles are flocking to Hanan that it is difficult to accommodate everyone, so even the house where Celia is staying will be used. The stern man in charge asks her to leave at that moment, leaving her homeless. Thankfully, her bestie Luana enters and tells her that she can stay at her place, which greatly moved her. It's strange to see Kaix again after their emotional night together, but when he asks her whether she still fears him, his saddened expression shocks her because she is used to his haughty demeanor. He looks like a puppy who wants to be rewarded. What startled her even more was his pledge that it would never happen again, so that she would no longer fear him. This girl has no idea that this guy likes her. Celia tells her dear buddy Eric what happened recently and is concerned about where he goes to shower now that she no longer has a home. He mumbles that taking a bath at her house was just an excuse to see her, but Celia doesn't hear him, so he simply says he's fine and is showering at his friend's house. And because it's becoming late, Eric tells her to head home, warning her to be on the lookout for a nobleman who reportedly has a thing for female servants. This innocent, cute-looking guy offers to accompany her home, but is immediately rejected by our naive girl. Their cute interaction clearly screams friend zone. Poor guy. Now that Eric has made her nervous about walking alone, she attempts to go fast when the said pervert Noble, who, by the way, looks so hideous with his belly button exposed as he rubs his tummy, appears in front of her drunk. Celia continues trying to display courtesy by giving him the directions to the castle, but all this does is enrage this pervert. He pulls her hair and slaps her face hard enough to leave a mark. Wait until our golden dragon finds out about you. Celia knows it will be dangerous if she is slapped one more time, since she is positive she will pass out. But thankfully, Luana arrives and throws potatoes at the drunk pervert, which Celia takes advantage of and kicks him where it hurts the most for perverts like him. The two ladies sprint and quickly find cover near Celia's former home, catching their breath. Celia manages to thank her friend, and Luana returns the gesture with a sincere grin. The fact that Celia had protected her from Kaix, and now Luana does the same for her, just shows how close their friendship is. They spend some time beside the river, and Celia wonders how Luana found her when she figured she was already at home. She then discovers that Luana is only just returning home from castle work because everyone is so busy preparing for the ball. Since Celia is busy babysitting Kaix, she is unaware of the ball, so Luana fills her in on the details, explaining that it will serve as a means of publicizing his presence in Hanan, as many nobles have come to meet him. Celia remains puzzled as to why nobles are so intrigued by Kaix, despite the fact that he is only a merchant, so Luana tells her about the claims that Kaix is a member of the royal family. According to what Luana has heard from the people, blue diamonds are solely owned by the Emperor, but the Apion Foundation, which Kaix controls, has their hands on them. Therefore, everyone believes he has a close relationship with the Emperor and is now making efforts to earn his favor. However, their brief chit-chat is cut short when guards discover them and believe they are burglars attempting to climb Lady Heltinia's place, at which point Celia realizes that this place is actually not hers anymore. The two ladies now have their wrists tied and are kneeling before Lady Heltinia, who is outraged and has no intention of showing mercy to them. The nobleman in charge of the staff, Martin, tries to soothe this yellow-haired lady, but all she wants to do is chop off Celia and Luana's heads. While she hears them argue, Celia clenches her jaw in frustration, as she can't believe she'll be punished for trespassing on her own place. But she has no choice but to bow down and beg the ladies' forgiveness. Lady Heltinia ignores what they say and instead has her guards whip them until she is satisfied, just in time for our charming golden dragon to show up. I mean, even in his pajamas, he looks gorgeous. Anyway, Kaix appears serious, far from his usual goofy self, and claims that he has been suffering from insomnia and that only Celia can help him, but that their ruckus has woken him up from his deep sleep. As the room goes into shivers from his evil aura, he marches towards Celia and warns them that he is greatly furious and that someone should be punished to appease him. In an effort to clear things up, Heltinia says that she's only punishing the burglars who broke into her residence, which confuses Kaix, so he looks to Celia, who shakes her head, signaling that she is not a thief. I love how he looks at her with calm eyes while looking at everyone else with wrath. Kaix then discovers that the spoiled noble lady is referring to the house in the back of the castle, which he actually bought for Celia with blue diamonds. If eyes could kill, this lady would be dead right now. But the staring game ends when Martin instantly bows down and admits to his mistake of kicking out Celia to have a guest stay at the house for a bit. The fact that Martin treated his belongings like his own makes Kaix lose control of his rage and reveal his darker side. Still, he pauses immediately after recalling the chance that Celia may once again be frightened of him, so he sighs and merely orders Martin to make money in order to repay him. Then Kaix turns around and confronts Heltinia, announcing that she'll be kicked out of the place, and before this pampered brat has a chance to speak, Kaix shoots her a menacing gaze and tells her to be grateful, as he is doing his utmost to avoid killing her. Celia and Luana made it through the night with the help of Kaix, but now it's time for our sleep-deprived girl to massage him into slumber yet again. As she gets ready to give him a massage, Kaix sees the mark on her face and demands to know what happened. He becomes enraged after learning that someone assaulted her. I was waiting for this, and I am certain that Kaix wouldn't be as forgiving as he was today. Kaix listens as Celia tells him details of the pervert's attack, Luana's assistance in her escape, and how they got to Heltinia's residence, where they were accused of stealing. She does her best to persuade Kaix that she and Luana would never rob anybody or break into their home, but she is aware that a nobleman like him would never believe a lowly servant like her. When Kaix, on the other hand, simply affirms what she has just stated, her heart starts to race because she feels as though there is some chance that he believes her. She looks down and tells him honestly that she doesn't want him to think she's a criminal, making our guy confused. So he asks her why, but she avoids answering. So Kaix, being Kaix, he takes it as a sign that Celia doesn't want him to think badly of her because she likes him. Then he flaunts his good looks and says it doesn't matter who she becomes because he would never love her, which Celia acknowledges. She tries to convince herself that she's acting this way because she finds it unjust that anyone could suspect her. But what Kaix said is really getting to her, and she hates that he is partially correct. These two are still in denial. Just a few days later, the night of the ball rolls around, and the servants are busier than ever before to meet the demands of all the nobility. They keep raising their voices, complaining about how small the Hainan mansion is to accommodate everyone, how bad the food is, and even how much they dislike the orchestra. Although Celia notices that there are many more issues with the event, she is astounded that the affluent nobles continue to participate, obviously motivated only by the appearance of one guy, Kaix, who appears even more regal in his suit and neatly styled hair. Everyone begins their mission to win his favor, but Celia is sure that no one will ever befriend this dragon, as he is clearly not enjoying himself this evening. Speaking of nobles, this pervy fat one is trying to draw attention to himself by breaking a plate while he pigs out on food. Eric picks up the shattered glass, which this slobbish noble finds interesting, and he begins kicking the poor servant. The other nobles find it entertaining as well. Gosh, what is wrong with these people? Poor Eric is injured, but it doesn't stop this pervert from continuing to stomp on him and ordering him to bark like an animal. The guests start laughing while Celia clenches her teeth and trembles in anger, realizing that they are no longer humans but monsters. Just then, Kaix suddenly orders the music to stop, and with his blazing eyes, finds the whole thing fascinating. These bullies are about to learn a lesson from the teacher, and I am here for it. Everyone pauses, but after seeing that Kaix appears amused, the nobles assume that he is enjoying watching the insane fat man kick Eric viciously, while Celia is furious and disappointed at his response. Calm down, sweetie. Your man is here to avenge you. This insane fat man really believes Kaix is on their side and proceeds to torment Eric once more, demanding him to undress and crawl. But they all gasp when they hear Kaix's voice commanding him to do what he had just told Eric to do. Kaix gets to his feet and says that it would be hilarious to watch the perv perform it instead, but the nobleman thinks he's joking and chuckles. Who said our guy is joking? To show that he is dead serious, Kaix shows off his menacing golden dragon eyes, which gives off chills throughout the banquet hall. However, knowing that Celia is witnessing this, Kaix orders Roman to let all the servants leave the area. Roman orders all of the servants to vacate the premises and shut the door before them. All of the servants are confused outside, while Celia fears and can't help but wonder what Kaix is planning to do. She wishes she could peek inside to see what's happening, but considering how heavily guarded the front door is, she has no choice but to wait outside with the rest of them. For what seemed like an eternity, Celia patiently waited for the doors to open as dawn broke. Finally, when the sun came up over the horizon, the door swung wide, and all the nobles hurried outside as if they were all running for their lives. Their scathing criticism of Kaix and their apparent intention to leave Hainan immediately captures Celia's interest, and she becomes even more eager to find out what really happened. To give you the rundown, Roman had already informed Kaix about the man who was terrorizing the women in the town. Thus, Kaix knew this bully nobleman in front of him was the one who hit Celia. He would normally have ripped the man to shreds, but he holds back after seeing Celia's visibly anxious expression, which is why the servants are told to wait outside. Kaix has no idea as to why he's so upset with the fatso for assaulting Celia, and the fact that he does not want Celia to witness him commit violent acts leads him to blame his missing core for his unusual emotions. So now that the servants have left the hall, it is time for Kaix to bully the bully. He instructs the pervert to remove his clothing, which enrages the man, who claims Kaix is nothing more than a merchant and not above him. Kaix listens to him with boredom and has the guards restrain him while he recounts his crimes of harassing and beating women. The notoriously mad dragon Kaix is roaring back into action, and the pervert's blood is leaking with each flick of his finger. It's undoubtedly so gruesome, as the nobles appear traumatized, whereas Roman seems to be used to it and has already planned to clean up Caix's mess and ensure that no one in the room ever speaks about it. Well, that scumbag certainly deserves that. The next day, after the nobles have left Hanan, things return to normal. However, this time there is a slight difference. The villagers who used to shiver at Caix's presence are now gleaming and loving him. This is because the news of how he punished an abusive noble and saved Celia and Luana spread throughout the town, and people began to glorify him. Meanwhile, the man in question is now having a huge crisis since he believes the rumors will make Celia fall even harder for him. Imagining Celia will come gushing about how great he is, he decides to keep his distance from her till the rumors stop. However, given his desire for her massages, he throws away his first plan and opts to keep her close. After that, he faces still another dilemma. What shall he do if Celia wants more than just a massage? He thinks she'd demand an embrace or even beg him to love her as payment. He turns red at the thought of it, and somewhere, Celia is simply scratching her ear. The most adorable Delulu ever. They're now playing a staring game, and when Kaix says she's incredibly obvious, Celia starts sweating because she believes he's talking about her true identity. However, she is taken aback when Kaix is simply talking about her feelings for him and orders her to stop them, which she accepts effortlessly. When he didn't get the reaction he was hoping for, she adjusted dramatically by crying and promising to end her feelings for him. Best Actress of the Year! Her declaration clearly irritates this guy, who obviously wants her to continue loving him, but his upset look makes Celia believe he doesn't trust her words anymore because of the stealing incident. They are really all over the place! Kaix couldn't sleep that night since he thought he had gone too far today and made Celia cry. So he grins and sets up to reward her. Cutie. The next day, Kaix prepares both good and bad news to deliver to Celia, so he begins by informing her that she can go on a date with him. Celia asks for good news next, assuming it's bad news, but then she realizes it's actually his good news. So she quickly adjusts her tone and acts as if she appreciates it, making our guy very proud. Then he breaks the bad news that he has to go away for a bit, which nearly makes Celia shout with joy, so she quickly bends over and covers her mouth. After 10 years of nightmares, she is finally going to be rid of him, but for some reason, she feels a little sad. Kaix sees her disappointed expression and comforts her by telling her he will return in just 2 weeks, which breaks Celia's already happy heart. It didn't take her long to accept it because she already had a sneaking suspicion that it was too good to be true. Thinking about their date, she becomes serious and declares that she will cut off her feelings for him as he wanted, causing Kaix to be displeased and never speaking to her again. Celia is in a trance, trying to figure out what she said wrong, as her other female maids yell at her because they need to prepare for her first date. Their enthusiasm is making our girl feel so shy. Cutie. Celia's maid buddies are such sweethearts, lending her the prettiest gowns they have because they know she only owns old, shabby dresses. Just then, Eric knocks on her door to discuss something important, which is Celia's cue to send the other girls home and stop them from bothering her with her outfit. Meanwhile, Eric is completely confused, so the other girls spill the beans about Celia's date tomorrow, making Celia freak out and blush as she clarifies that it's just a casual hangout and not a date. However, when poor Eric gives her that bitter expression while smiling faintly and telling her to have fun, she gets confused. Aw, I get that Eric is such a good person and all, but please, find someone else, cause we're all about supporting our dumb pair. Speaking about the two, the next day has arrived, which means it's finally their date, so Celia, looking happy and proud in her decent dull yellow dress, walks to Kaix's room. But to her shock, she receives a straight no from him. Kaix then smiles since he knew something like this would happen and had already made certain preparations with the help of these twin-looking maids behind him. They joyfully carry our green pea for a makeover, and voila! Compared to what she wore previously, Celia's outfit is far more beautiful and expensive, and she has her hair tied with that lovely flower hair piece. I really like how the palace maids show their support for her and not say things like, "That should have been me," or "She doesn't deserve that treatment," like the cliches. In any case, the door is gleefully opened by the servants to reveal Kaix, and Celia is captivated by the dragon's dashing white attire. Well, being someone who takes great pride in his looks, He asks our girl immediately whether she has fallen in love with him again. She answers in the same manner she always does, but there's some truth to it. She does find his beauty rather attractive. As they casually stroll together, Celia can't help but notice how everyone is gawking at Caix's stunning good looks. Instead of being envious or anything, our girl simply acknowledges the fact that everyone is admiring Caix. After all, if she could, she too would spend all day staring at him. Then, Caix turns his attention back to her and sees that she's red, which makes him concerned that she might be scorching in the sun. Celia nervously averts her gaze, stating that she is simply nervous about her first date, while our guy looks utterly thrilled and confesses that it is also his first. They are so cute. Celia looks extra cute when she blushes, given that she never envisioned herself being on a date with someone as amazing as Caix. Their special relationship, aka becoming his masseuse, is the only reason she has ever experienced this, and it's making her mood a little bitter that she isn't even noticing the protruding stone ahead. She sways unsteadily as she balances herself, prompting Caix to swiftly provide support and advise her to be more cautious in the future. However, what really hits her is when he mentions that he might not be present to help her next time. Celia is certain that this date is only a one-time thing, since she knows that their relationship would never go beyond this point, because she has his core and all. So she gives him her most charming grin while she plans to make the most of their first and last date. They spent the day laughing and smiling as they went shopping, rode the boat, and ended the day with a picnic, because Caix knows how much Celia loves food, while he simply drinks tea and admires her. Thanks to the stuff he had Roman acquire for him, their date went smoothly, and he couldn't be happier about it. To explain what that item is, let's go back and check Roman's POV. Just days earlier, this black dragon earned a genuine compliment from Caix, which made his jaw drop in shock. Why? Well, Roman has been by Caix's side since the day he hatched into a cute-looking golden dragon, yet Caix has never praised him, not even once. And we're talking about 600 years of being together. For all the years he's spent helping the young master, he still can't believe that Caix has only recently started to give him praise. All because he gave him a book on dating secrets. What can I say? That's what love can do to a man, but look at this poor guy almost fainting. Come here, Roman, I'll shower you with love. Back in the present, our darling girl feels extremely satisfied with what she just ate and can't help but thank Caix for the best date ever. While Caix, as always, compliments himself. He then smiles and acknowledges that he too had a lot of fun doing new things with her, which causes Celia to giggle and show him her beaming smile again, expressing that she is delighted to be his first date. Caix's golden eyes widen in awe at the lovely lady before him, causing him to grin slightly before beaming warmly at her. At some point, he gets up because it's becoming dark, and instead of asking Celia to escort him home, he offers to walk her to her house to end their lovely evening. Oh, they make me feel so single. It's already dark when they arrive at Celia's house, and our girl clearly doesn't want the day to end with simply Caix saying goodnight. So when he starts walking away, she grabs his shirt from behind. They both begin to flush. The silence ensues until she eventually expresses her feelings and begs him to stay. This girl is very bold to take the lead. The two spend the night together, and when she wakes up with Caix at her side, she immediately sits up and realizes what they have done. That escalated quickly. Anyway, our guy sits up confused as well, but Celia pulls out her acting skills once more, and with a sad expression, tells him that she had a dream in which he abandoned her. This sets Caix on a serious tone, and she wonders if she would ever be angry with him if he were to actually abandon her. Well, our girl doesn't have the right to declare she'll be angry, so she states she'll be disappointed instead. Yet Caix can already tell that she'll curse him, brand him a bad person, and talk behind his back. Following this, he slowly comes closer to her as he recognizes he doesn't want to be called a bad guy by her, and he admits with a straight face that he doesn't like leaving her behind either, which surprises Celia. Her heart begins to race and her ears are burning red, but she refuses to allow her emotions to take over because she is certain that this selfish, self-centered dragon will never make such a confession. The next morning, Roman keeps nagging our guy about his, sleepover with Celia. But Caix sees nothing wrong with it, because there's no way anything awful will happen to him while he's with the green pea. However, shortly after saying so, Caix begins to cough. His breathing becomes heavier and he faints. Is this a side effect or is he just lovesick? In this novel world, divine beings rule the heavens, demons rule the underworld, and dragons rule the earth. As the Earth's emperor, Kaix is expected to produce an heir, but Kaix, being Kaix who only loves himself, has no desire to ever have children, so he decides to make a puppet emperor instead. In light of the fact that there are human families that secretly worship dragons, Kaix instructed Roman to choose one person to be the fake emperor. For the role of empress, he intended to choose a commoner, which is why the empire will hold an empress selection so that he can fulfill his intention. Roman is submitting his report to Kaix, and suggests they return to the imperial palace to appoint the human candidate he has his eye on for the post of emperor. However, when the sick Kaix says he will only be there for at least 2 weeks, Roman can't help but react because it is such a short time to assess the fake emperor. Plus, the people who left the Hainan village will return tomorrow, implying they will soon find and catch the northerner who stole the core, so there's no reason to return. Even though he knows he must go back to the imperial palace, Kaix acts like a little boy and rants at Roman, telling him that he promised Celia that he would return because she stated she would die without him. I don't remember Celia saying that, though. Such a delulu. This entire situation is making Roman's job difficult because it is obvious that Kaix likes Celia but is unaware of it. And seeing Kaix sick today signifies that he is in heat, which means he needs his mate who shares his core. But since they haven't found that person yet, Roman decides to just fetch Celia, aka Kaix's crush. While on the field, a maid approaches Celia and informs her that Roman is looking for her, prompting Celia to figure out that if Roman is still around, Kaix has not yet left Hainan, which makes her very pleased. When she gets to the estate, Roman swiftly informs her that Kaix is sick and that he needs her to do something to help him have a decent night's sleep. Celia believes Roman is exaggerating, believing that Kaix is only slightly feverish, but not until she sees him on the bed, wrapped in a blanket, face red, and breathing loudly. After that, Roman casually leaves, prompting Celia to check on Kaix. But before she can touch him, Kaix grabs her hand and demands what she is doing in his room. He then coughs, prompting him to tell her to leave immediately. But Celia is so drawn to his aroma that she can't help but touch his hand and offer him a massage. Kaix is done resisting himself, so he grabs her hand and realizes she's flirting with him. Celia feels terrible about her behavior toward the sick person, but our girl just can't help herself. So they wind up having another sleepover. When morning arrives, Roman enters Kaix's room to give him a report, but is surprised to see that the man is already sitting on the side of the bed, fever-free. Kaix sends him an annoyed look, but Roman seems unfazed and simply declares that all of the people of Hainan have returned, but none of them are northerners. Roman then looks at the sleeping Celia and argues that because Kaix's fever is caused by heat and will only go away when the fragmented portions of the core join together, he is confident that the northerner they are looking for is Celia. Kaix picked up on this after yesterday night's event, and he can't believe Celia is the person he's searching for, whose heart he must tear out. He then gently strokes her hair, looking crushed since he thought Celia was just a human in love with him. But now that he knows she has the core, he doubts it. Oh, our dumb dragon isn't so dumb after all. It's been a week since that day, and Celia is now overthinking because Kaix never called for her until today, when he summoned her so early in the morning. As soon as she enters his room, she uses her puppy eyes to apologize for jumping into him while he wasn't feeling well. But all she gets is silence. At some point, Kaix finally speaks up, asking her what she thinks he should do with her. He looks very upset, and I'm worried for our girl. After a minute, Celia expresses her desire for Kaix to forgive her, but he only gives her a stern look, questioning why he would do so, making her wonder why he's so serious. So she continues to express that she's a very imperfect person, but she has no malicious intentions, and she believes that many of her mistakes arise from a lack of understanding. Kaix then asks how he can be sure she's being honest, and she quickly tells him that he can trust her, expressing her assurance that she will never lie to him. After hearing all that, Kaix asks about her birthplace, rendering her speechless as she wasn't prepared for this moment. Celia starts to feel awful for thinking it would be just a normal, friendly encounter, overlooking the fact that Kaix is the dragon who has promised to destroy her completely. His irritation intensifies with her silence, prompting him to insist that she speak, which only escalates her panic. She decides to keep calm, thinking that if Kaix genuinely thought she was a northerner, he wouldn't be doubting her, which shows Kaix's uncertainty. Thus, she decides to stay composed and let him know that she comes from Enraged, a coastal town situated at the southern tip of the country. Kaix simply stares at her because he knows she's lying, and he wonders if she truly likes him. In order to survive, she tells him another lie that she does like him, which makes him question whether she's being honest, similar to how she genuinely revealed her homeland. Celia's yes suggests she is lying about her feelings for him, so Kaix decides to just let her leave his room. I understand Celia's lie, since our girl simply does not want to die knowing how merciless Kaix can be. But I also know Kaix will never hurt her, so hearing her lie must have made him feel terrible. However, Celia pauses to ask if he will not punish her, and then immediately offers to put him to bed like she had before. But when he ignores her, she figures he doesn't want it. She swiftly bows and prepares to leave the room when Kaix takes her hand and kisses her passionately, reminding her that she should have left when he told her to. Oh my, his hunger wins over his anger and logic. Or is this only because of the core? Kaix and Celia are peacefully asleep when Roman walks into the room, feeling upset as he sees Kaix holding Celia close to him. Now he understands that Kaix truly cares for Celia, sacrificing his own life core to keep her alive instead of killing her. But as Kaix's advisor, he must see through this, and with his menacing eyes, he wonders if he should deal with Celia himself. I like you, Roman, so don't do anything that will make me hate you. Celia suddenly awakens and is astonished to see Roman staring at her. Caught in an embarrassing circumstance, she hurriedly explains herself and rushes out of the room. Once Celia leaves, Kaix awakens and warns Roman against entering his bedroom without prior consent. Roman quickly apologizes and asks Kaix why he doesn't reclaim his core. After a brief pause, he informs Roman that she could be useful, causing him to insist that he can find someone better than the green-haired Celia. Kaix, on the other hand, believes that there's only one possible person, and that Celia is the best cure for his insomnia. Left with no other options, Roman cautiously asks when he can reclaim his core, and learns that Kaix intends to do so by the time the issues at the Imperial Palace are settled, at which point he will be crowned. Kaix couldn't sleep that night, convinced that all her tears and declarations of love for him were lies. He realized he had lost his mind in wanting her to like him, so he tells himself that the reason he wants her to stay with him as long as possible is because of his plan to take her heart out when the time comes, which contains the core essence. However, puzzled by his sentiments, he immediately wants to meet Celia. But as he approaches her house, he hears her chatting and notices Celia with a man, who is now confessing his affections for Celia, which enrages him. Uh-oh, I really hope that he won't end up killing Eric. In his rage, Kaix unexpectedly finds himself between Celia and Eric, confusing everyone. Even Kaix is puzzled about what he's doing, so to avoid embarrassment, he just asks Celia what she's doing there, which surprises her because she's standing in front of her house, wondering what Kaix is doing there. Kaix has no idea what he's feeling, and he blames it on the romantic literature he reads, because a powerful man like him doesn't need love, which is only for the weak. That being said, the fact that he is angry right now after seeing a love confession leads him to believe that he truly despises love. You're jealous, you dummy! Seeing Celia's puzzled expression, he decides it's best to say something and recalls her request for punishment. He merely reiterates this, leaving Celia astounded by his unexpected visit in the middle of the night solely to punish her. Eric, Celia's guest, then introduces himself and directly asks if Kaix has any business with Celia, which irritates Kaix even more. So he pulls Celia to his side, grins, and asks if she has any business with Eric. Celia becomes increasingly perplexed, but she recognizes that Kaix wants Eric out of sight, so she informs Eric that they can chat another time, leaving the poor fellow with no other option while the cutie dragon proudly smiles. It's a relief to know that Eric is alive and well after that. Inside Celia's home, Kaix warns her against dating and falling in love, explaining that he will not let his own person be influenced by such absurd feelings, leaving Celia confused. Kaix then emphasizes that he is an exception to his rule, hinting that she can still love him, which leads Celia to suspect that Kaix is in love with her, but she dismisses the idea as it is the self-centered dragon we're speaking of. As Kaix moves closer to carry out her punishment, Celia instinctively pulls away, fearing she won't be able to endure any beating from him. However, her fears are put to rest when she suddenly receives a kiss from him. He gives her that loving smile of his while Celia blushes. And that, guys, is how they end up having another sleepover. I would not be surprised if we see baby dragons in the near future. After that night, Kaix continues to prey on her whenever he has the chance, claiming that it is all punishment, until they are caught today by Jade, the palace's owner, who bursts into the room excitedly to give him a gift. First of all, this is not a punishment, and second, please get a room! Celia is in a state of panic, but all it takes is a gentle snap of Kaix's finger for Jade to drop to the ground and fall asleep. Kaix is furious that Jade had the audacity to sneak up on them while they were kissing in such an open spot. Goodness gracious! Regardless, Celia is still taken aback by the fact that Kaix is capable of knocking out a person with just a snap, which prompts Kaix to reveal his secret that he is able to use magic. This is something she already knows, since, duh, dragons are majestic beings. But still, she behaves as if she's startled, while Kaix glances away and mumbles that she must already know about his secret. She doesn't understand why he had to word it that way, but she can sense that something is not quite right. Nevertheless, those thoughts are swept away when Kaix approaches her and begins to look at her with such adoring eyes. With harvest season in full swing, everyone is incredibly busy, barely finding time to eat. Celia takes it upon herself to bring them something to eat. She's walking quickly when someone hugs her from behind and she sees Eric, who offers to carry her basket. However, she quickly declines because she finds being around him unsettling after his confessions. Eric continues, but to their surprise, Kaix takes the basket from them instead, leaving them in disbelief. Especially when Kaix explains that he has always wanted to try distributing food. Celia and Kaix are about to leave when he finds Eric following them, causing Kaix to order Eric to go somewhere else. But Eric insists on heading in the same way as them. Kaix insists that he should not go in the same direction as them, escalating the situation. Celia wonders what's up with Kaix and believes he's been acting weirdly aware of Eric since the night they met. At that moment, Celia misunderstands the scenario, thinking that Kaix has feelings for Eric. I just facepalmed myself. How did she ever get to that conclusion after all their sleepovers? She begins to notice that each time Eric tries to help her with her task, Kaix unexpectedly shows up, takes charge, and sends Eric off, possibly to protect him from any discomfort. Yet as Celia's imagination spirals, the realization that Kaix has feelings for Eric overwhelms her with distress. However, staring at Kaix makes her want to believe that if Kaix likes anyone, it should be her. But she also suspects that because she has been exaggerating her feelings for him, he might dislike her. Girlie got the first part right and decided to just overthink. That night in Kaix's room, he wonders why Celia keeps staring at him, causing her to speak up since she can't help but wonder whether Kaix's previous statement that love is a useless emotion means that the love he feels is likewise pointless. However, Kaix coldly confirms that he doesn't feel love, prompting her to believe he's lying. She then urges him to be honest with her, which causes Kaix to react and inquire as to what she's talking about. Celia then straightforwardly asks Kaix if he likes Eric, prompting him to respond that it's absurd. However, Celia begins to react and share her thoughts, leading Kaix to doubt her mental abilities. Same. To change their topic, he pulls Celia into his lap, tells her to talk about him, and warns her not to mention Eric again. Kaix then presses her hand against his face, asking whether he looks like a guy who would lie to her, making her flush as she agrees with his statement. Kaix suddenly asks whether Celia actually likes him, and after a brief hesitation, she confidently tells him that she does. However, Kaix abruptly shifts his demeanor when he expresses his desire to take her heart to verify her statement. This makes Celia shake with fear, but she musters her courage to explain that she has had a fragile heart since childhood, and even if he were to take it out and inspect it, he wouldn't be able to find anything. He eventually stops trying to corner her because her adorable expression, as she explains, makes his heart skip a beat. One day, Jade eagerly shows Kaix his elixir of truth, explaining that it's a remarkably distinctive magical potion that when it touches the body, compels you to disclose the truth about anything. Kaix, however, remains uninterested, leading Jade to open the vial for a demonstration. Regrettably, it releases an unpleasant smell that the maids cannot tolerate. With no maids willing to participate, Jade selects Lena, who promptly refuses, leading Jade to draw her in closer. In her struggle, She accidentally hits the vial, sending it soaring above and nearly landing on Kaix. As she observes this, Celia expresses a wave of fear, worried that it could expose Kaix's dragon identity. In a flash, she swiftly shields Kaix by enveloping him with her own body, unaware that this act will also reveal her true identity. She grows horrified as her hair returns to its natural black color, marking the day she has been desperately struggling to escape. The day when Kaix will discover her identity and kill her. Taking her to his room, Kaix admits that he is at a loss as to how to handle her. Because his tone is so gentle, Celia can't help but hope that Kaix will listen to her. So despite her fear, she begs him to let her live. She understands that what is in her heart is extremely valuable, but she swears never to use it because all she wants is to live in peace. However, what shatters Kaix is when Celia begs him to leave, forcing him to hold her closer and ask whether she'll be okay without him, given how much she loves him. Celia looks at his sorrowful face for a moment before looking away and admitting that she just wants to stay alive, which makes Kaix laugh because he realizes she has been pretending as if she loves him the whole time. He is losing his mind and just kisses her rudely, adding that it must be easy for her considering that she is even comfortable sleeping with him. He doesn't care anymore and is ready to roughly kiss her again when he notices how terrified Celia is, leading him to push her away, arguing that she should not have saved him earlier. The fact that he's still careful around her shows how much he likes her. However, they haven't realized what they really feel yet, so both of them are emotionally exhausted, with Celia wondering why she protected him and Kaix having his heart broken for believing she actually loved him. I am stressed and I feel bad for both of them. They should have communicated better. That night, Celia is glad that Kaix allowed her to live, but she feels that he will not let her live for long, so she chooses to flee as soon as possible. However, as she hides in a corner of her house, she fears Kaix will eventually find her, yet she is unable to devise a plan because the creaking and smashing outside distracts her. Anger boiling over, she frantically opens her window to see who's making the noises. To her surprise, it's Lena, who reveals that she's actually making the trip to the capital to compete in the Crown Princess competition. This bubbly girl has been talking about joining the event for a while now, and Celia assumed it was a joke, but it turns out that it is not, as Lena is serious about it, knowing that being crowned will provide her with the lavish lifestyle that she has always dreamed. She also mentions that anybody can enter the selection, and that applicants would be able to eat and sleep in the palace, which is exactly what Celia needs. So she decides to go with Lena on her journey. The two girls snuck out of Hainan, dragging their small cart containing their things without regard for what lay ahead. Girl, rather than running away, you are now on your way to his home! The best friends have finally made it to the city, and they are astounded by the abundance of vendors and the lavish fashion choices of everyone around them, in stark contrast to their own ragged looks. Celia is concerned that they will not be allowed to participate in the selection because while commoners are permitted to participate, they appear to be beggars in comparison to the other ladies. When our always optimistic Lena notices Celia feeling low, she decides to lift her spirits by giving her the loveliest grin and telling her that they are no longer country beggars now that they're in the capital. No, scratch that. They work for a living, so they are just poor, not beggars. Lena is so sweet and innocent. May we just take a moment to admire her? Following that, everyone who decides to participate in the selection has gathered at the palace and is welcomed warmly. All candidates will have their own assigned room, with the rule that no personal attendants may accompany them unless they pass the first stage of the selection process. Most of the noble ladies are irritated by the rule. However, our two lovely girls are just overjoyed to have their own fancy room, especially Lena, who is racing around the room and enjoying the idea that they'll be allowed to eat fancy meals. Meanwhile, Celia sits on the bed, grateful to have come with Lena because she knows Kaix would never have expected her to participate in the selection. Her current plan is to do her best and figure out her next escape route. Girl, you just strolled into his den without even knowing! Right at that moment, a maid walks into their room and hands them an envelope with tomorrow's competition guidelines. Celia freaks out when Lena's eyes widen in horror as she opens the envelope, but in all honesty, Lena is merely impressed by how smooth the paper is. She's a different kind of dummy. Anyway, they open the letter and stare at it for a few minutes before giggling together because neither of them can read. Going into a competition with your best friend without the basics is seriously a best friend goal. The next morning, a maid leads them to the venue for the competition's first round. As they go, Celia can't help but feel nervous because they never get to figure out what the guidelines are. but Lena merely brushes it off and smiles, saying that they'll be all right. I aim to be as positive as Lena. They walk into a large space with long tables where all the candidates sit. Nevertheless, Celia is incredibly anxious since everyone appears so distant, while adorable Lena pays no attention because she's too preoccupied with the food to notice. Lena is such a child and I love it. After some time, a chubby, sweet-looking grandpa enters the room and announces himself as Duke Gorio Delson, the Emperor's delegate assigned to oversee the selection. His entrance causes the ladies to begin chatting, believing that the Duke is one of the few nobles who knows what the Emperor looks like, which Celia overhears. Okay, so no one in the capital knows it's Kaix. The Duke then opens a scroll and presents it to everyone, stating that what is written on it is the first challenge in the competition, putting Celia and Lena at a disadvantage. Without revealing anything about what's written on it, the ladies are given a piece of paper on which to write whatever comes to mind while examining the scroll. When the Duke says that only half of the candidates will remain after the test, it makes the candidates feel stressed and causes Celia to start panicking inside. However, when looking over at Lena, who pulls a funny look like she has no idea what to do, Celia can't help but laugh. This makes her recognize there's no point in worrying about the test because she'll never be the crown princess anyway, so she chooses to just write weird nonsense as well. Meanwhile, back in Hanan, Kaix returns to his grumpy, furious self, making Roman sweat. But he proceeds with his report, saying that Celia has entered the Imperial Palace with her friend Lena to participate in the selection in order to deal with her food and shelter troubles. Kaix finds it hilarious that Celia chose to run away to the palace, and he starts laughing uncontrollably while his expression turns terrifying. Roman shivers in terror, but he understands Kaix's rage since he too cannot believe Celia would run away so quickly. When Kaix realized Celia was missing, he went to her house and saw it was vacant, which enraged him so much that he blew up the entire house. Roman observed how Kaix suffered again and relapsed into insomnia. But this time it was even worse because Kaix was also brokenhearted. However, Roman is more concerned that if they don't find Celia and the core soon, Kaix would go rogue and destroy the Earth. Now that he has located Celia, Kaix intends to imprison her as soon as he captures her. But when he imagines Celia's adoring smile, he decides to include some extras in his plan, like filling her cage with fresh food because she loves to eat, and maybe even getting her a new bed. Thinking about it, he realizes that Celia has been complaining about her lack of literacy skills, so he plans to teach her to read as well. This realization causes him to smile bitterly, hoping that with all of his plans in place, she won't run away from him again. Aw, our egotistic dragon is hurting. Not long after that, Kaix returns to the Imperial Palace, looking stunning in his black and white suit, and begins reviewing the candidates for Crown Princess selection. He then asks Roman what the question for the first round of the competition is, and when he finds out that it's an essay about what they believe is the most genuine thing in the world, Kaix stands up and becomes enraged. Roman looks startled and confused, but he ends up giving that what the heck look because this emperor is simply upset since they made such a question to someone who does not know how to read. Kaix even calls poor Roman a monster for doing so. After calming down, he instructs Roman to retrieve the test paper so he can review Celia's answer. And as he reads it, he can't help but sigh, since what she wrote is the curse chain letter he forced her to write before. I didn't expect that! She made 7 copies of that letter, so she must have memorized it by heart. Regardless, Kaix is certain that Celia will be eliminated. The next morning, Kaix goes to the balcony and uses his eagle eye to watch the people below. When he spots his honey bunch sugar plum sweetie pie, his eyes glitter with excitement. His cheeks redden and his smile returns. You are really head over heels for our girlie, Mr. Dragon. Back to Celia, they are now checking the bulletin board to see if they passed. But as feared, she does not see her name, indicating that she failed. However, my girl Lena finds her name, which surprises both of them and prompts Celia to ask her to double-check that it is indeed her name. Well, both of them make it a priority to learn how to read and write their names, so Lena is confident she passed, prompting Celia to instantly hug and congratulate her. However, Lena stops celebrating when she realizes that Celia's failing means she must leave the palace. But don't worry, Celia has already devised a plan to become her attendant for the second round. Their room has now been upgraded, and as the two of them settle down, Celia becomes curious about how Lena passed the test, and discovers that Lena did not write anything but drew a picture of the rich fields of Hanan. Yeah, I was thinking about sketching too, unlike you, Miss Ma'am, who memorized that chainmail. They then start playing around, with Lena acting like a noble and requesting Celia to fetch her some food, which our girl gladly complies to. She immediately leaves the room, but to her surprise, Kaix grabs her wrist from behind and questions why she ran. There is no reason to lie anymore, so she simply confesses that she's terrified he will dispose of her, prompting Kaix to argue that she should consider the possibility that he does not intend to kill her. Hearing him say that makes her feel relieved, so she asks if he will let her live, but she gets annoyed when he answers no. Looking at Kaix's towering frame, Celia can't help but cover herself because she is so scared of him, prompting Kaix to nudge her into the corner and, appearing hurt, question if she truly believes he is terrifying. You just confirmed that you would kill her, so maybe? He does not stop there. This time, he questions what is really bugging him, whether Celia ever loved him throughout their time together. Celia turns away because she doesn't understand why someone like Kaix cares whether she likes him or not, and she suspects that her confession to him may have damaged his pride. However, there is no use in lying again because he already knows the truth, and he may kill her at any time. So she says with a straight face that she has never loved him because he is the very person who would rip her heart out. Ouch! I feel bad for Kaix. Celia is currently eating with Lena, but her mind is still reeling from what happened earlier. She is fortunate that Kaix let her live, but what really troubles her is the expression Kaix made earlier, as she is positive she saw him with tears in his eyes. My dummy guy had his heart destroyed! Celia knocks herself on the table to clear her mind, knowing that Kaix will never cry, but she also realizes that her heart is aching, possibly due to Kaix's sad expression, or perhaps because what she said earlier was false. I get it. Her drive to survive outweighs her feelings, which is why she's still in denial. Anyway, Lena interrupts her stream of thought by telling her that the second round is going to be a sparring battle. Celia is clearly nervous about her best friend Lena, since she has never wielded a sword before. However, Lena, ever the optimist, gives her a big grin and assures Celia that they will be trained well before the test. Too precious, must be protected. It's been days, and Celia is hungry today, but she isn't permitted in the kitchen, and she can't just order food under Lena's name because Lena is practicing and isn't with her. However, fate leads her to Kaix in the corridor, and she is now certain that she'll be killed, but she also wonders why Kaix keeps wandering around the palace. Suddenly, her stomach begins to growl, causing our heartbroken dragon to sigh. He knows just what she needs to invite her to follow him. To be loved is to be seen, they say. Just a few hours ago, Kaix was furious at Celia for lying about her love for him, and he vowed to kill her, tear her limbs apart, and pull her heart out. Yet for some reason, he becomes weak when he's in front of her. Roman then notices the great Kaix become distressed inside his room. And yes, this is the first time he's ever seen him cry. I think it's adorable that Kaix can show his emotions. Men can cry too, you know. After all the sleepovers they've had, this adorable dragon, whose red eyes are from crying, finds it unbearable that Celia simply used his body. This guy, really? Back in the present, Kaix walks Celia to his quarters, where a feast has already been prepared. And despite acting coldly, he instructs her to take a seat and eat. Celia does not miss her opportunity and begins consuming what is laid out in front of her, biting her tongue in the process, which causes Kaix to panic and rush to her side to see if she's okay. Upon realizing that her mouth isn't bleeding, he lets out a sigh of relief. However, he can't resist staring at her lips and unknowingly planting a kiss on them. As he pulls away, his face flushes hot, and he begins to sweat. He yaps that he kissed her just because her lips were dry, which is a typical behavior for dragons. And probably because he's panicking, he even says that he does it with Roman too. Awkward. Celia returns to eat, and Kaix decides to position his chair right next to her, leading our girl to become uncomfortable and move away. This only irritates him more, so he commands her to stay still and eat, to which she is forced to obey. Since he knows Celia won't be able to eat properly with him by her side, he proceeds to watch her eat while trying to convince himself that this entire act of offering her kindness is part of his plan to cause her suffering. But he can't help but feel that his torture is lacking something. So he gives Celia a green-looking drink that she has no choice but to drink. This makes him chuckle evilly since he knows Celia must be worried it's poisoned, but it's actually a nutritious juice that Roman made for him. Ah, yes, Sir Dragon, forcing someone to drink a whole cup of healthy juice is indeed pure evil. Just then, he notices Celia feeling sad, which leads him to believe she's still afraid that he would kill her. That takes her by surprise, but he isn't entirely wrong because she is still scared of him, but her sadness stems from not being able to go past the fact that Kaix will kiss anyone with dry lips. After that, she hesitantly informs him that kissing should only be done with someone they care about, because the other person might get the wrong idea. However, before she can finish her statement, Kaix snatches her face and plants a gentle kiss before smiling and asking whether she is envious of him kissing someone else. After going hot in the face, Celia puts on her poker face and explains that she is just informing him because she thinks it looks inappropriate. Plus, she feels bad for Roman. Really now? You're just jealous, Missy. Anyway, Kaix's excitement definitely fades, as shown by his expression of disappointment. Poor guy. Celia then decides to change the subject, asking if he cried on the day she told him she doesn't love him because he felt offended. But her question leaves Kaix distraught. His realization that he cried that day and had earlier cried in his room shocks him so greatly that he begins to wobble. Celia decides to lend him a hand because he seems strange, but Kaix warns her not to approach as he hides his bright red face. A result of his discovery that he actually cried for a human, for Celia, only because she told him she does not love him. He bolts out of the room, plops down on the floor, and at last, you guys, he finally realizes that he's in love with Celia. Take a look at this chump with that adorable flush face. And yes, finally, he connected the dots and got it right. Meanwhile, Roman bursts into the room where Celia is and questions why Kaix left so quickly and whether she offended him in any way. But our girl is completely clueless of what happened with Kaix. Nevertheless, Roman takes advantage of their time alone and tells Celia the shocking truth, that Kaix is the emperor of their nation, and she finds herself trembling in fear. Roman keeps on anyway, staring at her with a stern look on his face, and says that becoming Kaix's lover, or the empress, is no laughing matter. He is doing this to frighten Celia because he knows she's unfit for the position, so he hopes she'll give up now while Celia is still dumbfounded by what she has just learned. After revealing that, Roman instructs her to keep this a secret from everyone because Kaix does not want to attract unwanted attention from humans, prompting Celia to swiftly bow and pledge not to. Roman, what is this? I thought you said you didn't want to get involved in their complicated love thingy. Celia arrives at their room, surprised that Lena had guessed she met Kaix. It appears that Lena wandered around the estate looking for her when she noticed the other ladies squealing and discovered that they were all fangirling over Kaix, who is standing in a corner like a model that he is. Lena then smiles and tells Celia that she knows why Kaix was able to gain access to the Imperial Palace, which surprises Celia because, according to Roman, this should be a top secret. Fortunately, when Celia states that Kaix is the Emperor, Lena does not hear her, since she also loudly announced that she heard Kaix is the Emperor's relative. She almost got in trouble there! Actually, Celia isn't that surprised that Kaix is the Emperor, given that he's a dragon. What disturbs her the most is when Roman mentioned the Empress position thingy earlier, considering that she knows Kaix thinks love is pointless. However, now that she thinks about it, she can't figure out why Kaix would host a competition to choose a wife, which makes her extremely frustrated. Someone seems to be getting really jealous here, but they did say they had a fake emperor, right? Therefore, the selection is not for Kaix. Even so, our girl is so restless till the evening that she simply cannot sleep. She steps out of the room for a little walk, concerned that she would wake Lena up, when she comes across Kaix, who resembles a puppy in need of affection. Celia then asks what he's doing near her room, prompting this lover guy to be honest and blushingly declare that he cannot sleep without her. I smell another sleepover happening here. Celia blushes at what Kaix has just said, but she collects herself after remembering that this guy is in the process of picking a bride. Following that, she clarifies that if he wants massages, he must pay her not with money but with life, which means that for every massage, he cannot kill her for 10 years. Celia is now sweating because she worries her request is too much, but Kaix simply sighs because it's so easy to do. He suddenly becomes serious and discloses that the reason many people desire dragon core is because obtaining it grants you the lifespan of that dragon, which means Celia will live as long as Kaix. Given how dummy our girl is, she is unable to fully understand what he had just said, prompting Kaix to further, stating that a dragon as powerful as him has a longer lifespan than others. Therefore, when they have had enough and wish to end their life, they simply kill themselves. His explanation obviously confuses Celia more, who now believes that the reason Kaix brings the matter up is because he wants to take his own life while she is here doing everything she can to survive another day. Oh my gosh, they really share one brain cell! All Kaix wants to say is that she doesn't have to worry about dying, but the girl doesn't understand, so he simply agrees to her terms of 1 massage for 100 years of life. They are now in his room, where Kaix is resting on his bed, and Celia is sitting on a chair next to him, because this guy has ordered her not to touch him. Ever heard of air massage? Exactly what's going on right now. Time passes, and she still doesn't see how she can assist him in sleeping in this non-touching state, prompting Kaix to tell her to just talk to him instead. She thinks about it for a moment before deciding to use this chance to boost Kaix's spirits by commenting that being alive is wonderful. And given his fine looks, money, and ability to use magic, she is confident that he will enjoy living a long life. This causes Kaix to sit up as he realizes Celia believes he intends to take his life, forcing him to facepalm, but also blush as he can't believe Celia can look so beautiful despite how dummy she is. To have a guy who still blushes after seeing my flaws. I want one! Anyway, silly Celia has selective hearing since all she hears is Kaix calling her pretty, prompting her to question him bluntly if he likes her and witnessing Kaix get so red while turning away. This makes her feel fuzzy inside, and she can't help but wonder which part of her Kaix is drawn to. However, to her disappointment, Kaix lies, claiming that he is just attracted to her because she has half of his dragon core, when in truth, he is in heat because he likes her. This only hurts Celia's feelings, as she regrets putting her hopes up that Kaix would ever love her. Oh, I thought Kaix would be honest and confess his feelings. Kaix then scratches his head, feeling it is time for Celia to head out, but our girl simply pouts and questions whether she should really leave, prompting the two of them to enjoy another sleepover. As they lay in bed together, and just before they drift off to sleep, Celia decides to tell Kaix that she's going to give love a try before she dies, which fills our guy with joy. Since this is completely new to her, and because she learned from him that love is pointless, she asks for his opinion on whether or not it is worthwhile trying out. This causes Kaix to swiftly revert to his previous stance on love's worthlessness, and instead proclaim that love is a wonderful thing that cannot be bought. Celia is once again hurt by this sudden change in Kaix, and she guesses that this is all because he'll be getting married soon. This greatly annoys her, so she gets up and says that she will look for that love, causing Kaix to be taken aback because he believed Celia was referring to him, but it seems that our girl truly believes Kaix dislikes her. The whole "I'm attracted to you simply because of the core" thing has only made the misunderstanding worse. Anyway, Celia goes on to add that she will try to find someone to fall in love with inside the palace, but she knows deep inside that she will not be able to find anybody better than Kaix. They may have slept together a few times, but Celia can't help but worry that if she tells him she's fallen for him, Kaix will reject her because she thinks she's just one of his ladies to toy with until he can extract the core out of her. They've both accepted their feelings, but neither knows how to express them. As dawn breaks, Kaix is the first to rise, captivated by the sight of the sleeping Celia. He finds himself lost in thought, eagerly anticipating the moment her sparkling blue eyes flutter open. The longing to share sweet conversations, delightful meals, and joyous laughter with her fills his heart with warmth. He is really in love! When he initially discovered he was in love with Celia, he became alarmed and denied it. But before he knew it, he was on his way to Celia's room last night. Oh, that is why he was there! After admitting that he has really fallen in love, he can't help but miss Celia every moment, and the thought of not hearing her giggle drives him nuts. Kaix spoke about this with Roman, and all he got was Roman's concern since while he is in love, that doesn't change the fact that they need to get his core back. Back in the present, pretty Celia finally wakes up, making this sunshine bubba happy. and he begins to bombard her with questions like if she needs more sleep, she can, and if she needs a towel, he'll get her one. But to his disappointment, Celia sits up and coldly tells him that she can take care of herself. Kaix then decides to change the subject and wonders if today is the day she would begin hunting for her ideal man, because he intends to tag along and is intrigued about her taste in men. Celia, on the other hand, stands up furiously to return to her room. But before she does so, she shoots him a glance and suggests that he go check out the candidates for his future wife instead. Her stern expression, or should I say jealous face, suits her well, though. Still, there's little she can do if Kaix insists on accompanying her. So they've been looking for handsome guards, but Celia is becoming frustrated because Kaix is constantly pointing at other men and asking if they're her ideal partner. No matter how hard he tries, our stunning dragon truly believes no one can equal his beauty. Well, Celia and I agree with him, but she is too scared to confess to him as she thinks she's nothing compared to the women he expects to marry. In any case, our guy here thinks they should go outside because, who knows, maybe they'll find other attractive men like him if they venture. Still, Celia can't just go outside because of all the regulations she has to follow, prompting Kaix to suddenly carry her and leap out the window. Celia freezes with fear as they fall, but as soon as she opens her eyes, she finds herself riding the magnificent golden dragon, which is actually Kaix's true form. Celia is completely enchanted by the scenery and remarks on how lovely it is, prompting Kaix to look her way and smile proudly. However, seeing Kaix in his dragon form makes Celia shiver in fear since it reminds her of that terrifying day when he swore to kill her. But this is swiftly washed away when Kaix reassures her that she does not need to be worried because he will protect her. This makes her feel warm and fuzzy inside, since Kaix had that menacing expression when they first met. But now he's more like a tame Pokemon, ready to shield her from harm. Her heart used to skip a beat for Kaix out of fear, but now that she's blushing, she realizes her little heart is skipping for a different reason. However, her cute moment is cut short when this dragon returns to his narcissistic side and wonders if she's just wearing that strange expression not because she's scared, but because she is mesmerized by the beauty of his true form. These two are so cute. They start strolling around the capital, several towns, and eventually reach the vast ocean, which brings a smile to Celia's face and a grin to Kaix's as well. Oh my goodness, even in his dragon form, he remains to look quite charming when he blushes. Kaix takes her to an island on the southern continent that doesn't appear on human maps, and where the so-called fairies used to play. The sky is a paid actor for their date because it is now so lovely with its purple, pink, and yellow hue as the ocean glistens. Celia is having a blast strolling along the shore, and even admits she's never been there before, all while Kaix quietly trails after. She exclaims how great the world is as she looks out at the ocean and sky, and Kaix, who is standing behind her, can do nothing except grin and gaze in awe at his own world. Her! Really, I would give anything to have someone look at me the way Kaix does at Celia. He then plays with her hair and offers to take her any place she wants to go, cutely boasting that he is not like those ordinary men, hoping that Celia will finally recognize that he is her ideal man. However, Celia, being the dummy and overthinker that she is, believes that the reason Kaix does so much for her today, as if she is someone special, is to make himself look good and rub it in her face that he's a powerful dragon. She then softly caresses Kaix's face, and watching him grin makes her realize how much she really has fallen for him, prompting her to cry because she no longer knows how to let go of her love. Oh my goodness, how did the sweet date end up like this? Without any idea what to do, Kaix starts to panic and apologizes for whatever it is that made Celia cry out. He rushes to embrace her as she keeps sobbing because she really has developed strong feelings for him, making her feel sorry for herself. I can kind of see how she might feel hurt. There's the whole crown princess selection thing, plus she also feels like a total nobody. Celia wakes up in the morning and is startled to find herself inside the room she shares with Lena. However, her thoughts are diverted when she finds Lena with an arm cast and a face full of bandages. Celia discovers that the second round of the competition has begun and that Lena has lost, prompting her to take her friend's hand and gently bump their foreheads while praising her for giving her best till the end. Lena smiles as usual before changing the subject, stating that Kaix carried her all the way to their room. She cried herself to sleep, and Kaix deserves praise for being so respectful not to take her to his room. Anyway, Lena thought Kaix saw Celia sleeping on the floor, which made no sense to Celia until Lena mentioned that she assumed Celia was already practicing, since now that she's eliminated, both of them will be kicked out and have nowhere to sleep. This causes Celia to freak out because they don't have any money, prompting the ever-optimistic bestie to suggest that they can beg for money till they earn enough to buy train tickets back to Hanan, which Kaix overhears and now looks very angry. He then orders Celia to follow him into his room, where he sighs and proposes to hire Lena and her, along with allowing them to stay in the palace. This news shocks Celia, who is relieved to the point that she breaks into a big smile and expresses her gratitude to Kaix. Her expression surprises our guy, causing him to flush and clear his throat before promising to hire Lena to do some needlework, while he asks Celia if she can give him massages like before. 2 weeks have passed, and these two are clearly enjoying their time together. Today, as Celia exits Kaix's room, she reminds herself that Kaix's sweetness to her is only because of the core. So she goes away with that in mind as a group of ladies intentionally bumps into her and looks at her with those bully eyes. The girl with the blonde hair makes a disrespectful comment about Celia and Lena being in the palace after they were already eliminated. Celia responds by flashing the girl a look as well, and explaining that the Emperor himself has given them permission since she is no longer a servant. This surprises the ladies, who begin laughing at Celia, calling her delusional, which irritates her. But before she can say anything, a knight, who, by the way, looks incredibly attractive with that wavy black hair and golden eyes, decides to interfere and ask the ladies to stop. He calmly talks with them and offers to accompany them to verify the legality of Celia and Lena's stay at the palace, while Celia is left alone in the corridor, regretting not being able to thank the handsome knight. However, her problems do not end there, because it appears that someone has been throwing Celia's clothes on the ground, and the only people she can suspect are those bully ladies. They're definitely dead when Kaix finds out about this. Celia picks her clothes in the open space and notices that one of her dresses is on a tree branch, so she goes to grab it when the lovely knight appears again. I think I know what's going on here. We need another love interest so we can finally get these two to confess. Anyway, I miss her seaweed hair. Is this just me?
That's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!